Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League, from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered, from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back into the GSMC Baseball Podcast. My name is Patrick Kenny. I'm going to be your host for today's episode, and today we're going to be getting into some pretty deep subject matter, some pretty tough subject matter as well. We're going to be going over the Mickey Callaway sexual harassment and the fallout, or potential fallout and likely fallout with members of the Cleveland Indians organization. And then after that, we'll be going over a few decent prospects and how some players are doing so far, just a few days into spring training. And then finally, I'm going to be ranking my top 10 baseball players of right now, who are the top 10 players in the bigs. And I want to do those last two segments just because the first two segments are going to be pretty deep, and I think that it'll be a good idea to end on a lighter note. So with that being said, we'll get right into it. So Mickey Callaway was most recently the manager of the New York Mets for the last couple of seasons, and prior to that and his current role with the Los Angeles Angels, he was a pitching coach for the Cleveland Indians, where most of these allegations are beginning to come from. And The Athletic has done some fantastic reporting on this situation, and so we're just going to sort of get into this most recent report from Ken Rosenthal with The Athletic. So on February 4th, Cleveland Indians team president Chris Antonetti said, quote, he was disturbed, distraught, and saddened by the allegations that Callaway, of course, was the Cleveland Indians pitching coach from 2010 through 2017 prior to him joining the New York Mets. On February 1st, The Athletic came out with a report of 5 women detailing Callaway's sexually inappropriate behavior over the course of 5 years, multiple cities, and 3 teams. In 2015, the wives of multiple Indians players began discussing what they perceived to be extramarital relations between Callaway and a woman that was around the team. Some shared their concerns with their husbands and at least to one department head and another staffer. No formal complaint, however, was filed with Human Resources of the Cleveland Indians. One wife said, quote, you knew he had a lot of other women on the side. Callaway also took one of his mistresses on team trips, including but not limited to a September series in Detroit where they stayed at the MGM Grand Hotel, and another trip to Major League Baseball's winter meetings in Nashville. Basically, that means that the Cleveland Indians organization paid for the stay and travel of one of Callaway's mistresses, which is obviously not something that people really are okay with. Obviously, a mistress isn't something that you should have at all, if you're Mickey Callaway, especially in a situation like that, but nobody is... people are obviously upset with him about that, but that's not the story here. The story is the sexual advances and the disgusting ways that Mickey Callaway acted towards some of these women. And in this athletic report, it shows that there's a quote in the report that says this was the worst kept secret in the Indians organization. So people like Chris Antonetti can't necessarily say that he was surprised by this at all. There is plausible deniability by Chris Antonetti just because there were no formal complaints, but one woman who worked for the Cleveland organization said, quote, "I don't think it's necessarily a Cleveland issue, but a baseball issue. As women, we feel like if we report something, we'll be looked at as a tattletale, or that if we talk, the team will figure out who reported it. It is possible that the higher-ups could have been unaware, but with Chris Antonetti's declaration that, quote, there had never been any complaints against Mickey in his time with us, either to me or to Human Resource Department or other leaders, prompted multiple people who had interactions with Callaway during this time with the organization to contact The Athletic and accuse Antonetti of being evasive. One former employee of the Cleveland Indians said, those comments hit me the wrong way. I knew that that's the way Chris has to do it and run some things, but the amount of people who know about all that stuff, I don't know how he can face his staff. And there are more details in this article from Ken Rosenthal about his potential sexual harassment. In late 2016 or early 2017, he sent unsolicited photos, full frontal nude pictures, to a friend of another woman that he was involved with. The friend worked in the Indians organization at that time. The Athletic previously reported that Callaway sent a former Indians employee suggestive messages on LinkedIn, making a pass at her on the field during the 2015 season. And from what else is going on in this article, for example, in the spring of 2014, Arizona, Callaway met a married woman when she accompanied her son to seek out an autograph. She gave Callaway her phone number in spring of 2015, she says, because Callaway offered to come to her son's t-ball game and needed directions. As avid baseball fans, she and her husband were initially thrilled. The woman and Callaway began an affair that was consensual and included Callaway sending explicit photos and at least one lewd video. The relationship ended when the woman's husband found out in February 2017, when her husband confronted Callaway via text about the situation. Callaway texted back that he had to inform Major League Baseball security because his cell phone was, quote, company property. The Athletic viewed this exchange. On April 16, 2017, Chuck Bladlock, a former detective in the Phoenix Police Department and MLB security agent, called the husband and left a voicemail, which The Athletic reviewed. His voicemail references a dispute with Callaway and ends with, quote, this was trying to discuss this and see if we can come to some remedy. The husband said that Bladlock's call was told, quote, Mickey wants this all to go away. He doesn't want to file a report, end quote. The husband agreed not to proceed, but later that summer, still upset, he began calling the Indians Fan Services Department. He called Major League Baseball and followed up with Bladlock and requested that a report be filed to Major League Baseball. Blalock confirmed that he left the initial voicemail and received the follow-up request from for a claim. When asked repeatedly what became the husband's request, he would only say, quote, I offered to submit a report, end quote. The husband and wife who spoke to The Athletic in separate interviews say that they did not hear from Blalock again, nor did they hear from anyone associated with Major League Baseball or the Cleveland Indians. A league source confirmed that a report about the matter was filed to Major League Baseball. The husband continued to call the Indians fan service department, where low-level employees would answer the route. The call to the team's public relations and communication staff. At some point later that summer, the husband was calling so frequently, basically every other day, according to a source, that team's PR communication staff brought the matter to the attention of Francona and General Manager Chernoff and team president Chris Antonetti. That is pretty damning information right there. There is absolutely going to be fallout. It is likely that that Antonetti and Francona will probably lose their jobs, as well as Mike Chernoff. It's likely that they will all probably get fired, and with Tribe fans already upset with the team owner Dolan and the Dolan family for trading away Francisco Lindor, and on top of this, I would very much expect a issue or at least a movement for the Dolans to sell this team. The report goes on and says, quote, the issue was addressed with him by the 3 highest-ranking baseball officials, said a former employee. That summer, the woman in Arizona spoke on the phone with Tom Mann, a partner at a Cleveland law firm. Callaway shouldn't have done it. He's wrong. He knows that, Mann said during one call with the wife recorded in August of 2017. Manning continued, quote, I've actually talked to Francona, and he told me he was willing to talk to you and your husband, or to your husband and you, and he said that this has cost Mickey huge financially, and it cost him huge with the organization, ... He told me, he said, quote, Tom, I'm not losing my pitching coach. Manning at one point asked if a phone call from Francona would make her husband feel better. Those offers were declined. Manning also told her that he sensed the Indians had punished Callaway, fining him in excess of $100,000. He expressed concern about the possibility that the husband would make public photos and/or a video Callaway sent to his wife. Quote, a baseball team is just like an office, end quote. Manning said in a recording, quote, once one person finds out, I'm sure Mickey has told me it's embarrassing as hell for him. He's sort of gotten all out of sorts of shit for it. Major League Baseball found out. The Indians found out. The team found out. He got hurt in the pocketbook, and he got hurt in his pride, end quote. The Indians said in a statement in June of 2017, we received reports from a man alleging extramarital contact between Mickey and his wife over a 2-year period. Within days of the report, we spoke to Mickey about the alleged behavior, and he maintained that the relationship was consensual and outside of the workplace. Following our conversation with Mickey, and to our knowledge, there were no further complaints of misconduct from this person during Mickey's tenure with the club. The Indians added that they did not fine or discipline Callaway, nor were they ever in contact with Manning regarding that matter. This is some pretty deep stuff for sure. I don't know how much else that Callaway has been suspended and is being investigated currently by the Los Angeles Angels, and there is a lot of allegations going on with him. But I think what is the most interesting part of this story, other than obviously the sexual assault allegations and the sexual harassment allegations, I should say. I don't know if there was. I don't know if there were any reports of sexual assault. But I think that it is definitely more interesting to see if the Indians will fire Terry Francona, fire their team president, and fire their general manager. I don't think that there's another way around this, and even as beloved as Terry Francona is in the organization, I think that you can't have you just can't have somebody like that, or you can't have something like this going on behind the scenes, and once you try and cover it up and it all comes out, that's going to be that's the end of your career in baseball. And I don't think that Terry Francona can survive this. To me, this is a lot like Ohio State just a couple years ago with Urban Meyer and the domestic abuse situation with one of his coaches at Ohio State University. And Urban Meyer had recently won a national championship for Ohio State in football. He was bringing a ton of money into the school, and not even him, who is football royalty in that sport, could get out without having to deal with some of that horrible outcry from the public. Urban Meyer was obviously suspended for the first part of that season, and then announced afterwards that he would be leaving the team following the end of that season. And while Ohio State has bounced back on the football field, there is still that aura still surrounds Urban Meyer, even now when he is at Jacksonville. And because of those allegations, you are still going to find yourself in a very basically once you're caught in this storm, you can't get out of it. It's going to follow you wherever you end up going, and because of that, it is just utter. It is definitely not a slow news day today. Tuesdays and Wednesdays in sports media tend to be the slower nights of the year, and because of that, but because of this new story, or this new report, I should say, from The Athletic, because it's not a story, it's real journalism, and it's a real report from a very credible source. But once something comes, I don't expect it to be very long before Terry Francona and the rest of the staff or the rest of the highest-ranking baseball officials for the Cleveland Indians, I expect them to be let go fairly soon, because they hit it, and because they did something just so horrific. And by hiding these allegations and these accusations. So we're going to take a short break, have some ad space in here in just a minute, and then we're going to continue with this story in the next segment, and then after that, I'm going to end us on a lighter note with a just a overview of some prospects that are doing well so far in spring training, and then I'm going to rank my top 10 players in Major League Baseball right now, just to get us into a more into a lighter mode. I know this is very touchy and very tough subject matter for all of us to process. So in just a few seconds, we'll be right back with more Mickey Callaway talk.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Everybody, welcome back in. So I was reading on Twitter a short just a short statement while I was taking a break from recording these different segments, and I saw this tweet from Nick Francona, who is Terry Francona's son, and I'm just going to read you his statement. I was disappointed to read the reporting in The Athletic this morning by Katie Strange and Britt Goholry. I apologize if I mispronounced that last name. I'm so sorry, but and this is me saying that. This is and not the statement, but back to the statement. Unfortunately, I cannot say I am surprised. When the news about Mickey Callaway's behavior first came out earlier this year, I confronted my father, Chris Antonetti, and others with the Cleveland Indians. I wanted to know why they didn't say anything to me when the Mets hired Mickey Callaway and when they gave him a strong endorsement. My father lied to me and said he didn't know. Additionally, I think that he and his colleagues fail to understand what is acceptable behavior and what isn't. I confronted my father again this morning, and it is clear that he simply doesn't get it. I am hesitant to go into personal details of my family situation, but my father and I do not have a particularly close relationship, largely as a result of disagreements about his conduct, some of which has been reported over the years and some of which has not. I have always tried to stand up for what I felt is right, and even when it isn't easy. In this case, this means acknowledging that my own father and his colleagues are clearly in the wrong. Their behavior is unacceptable, and even worse, it's hard to have faith in them to improve and learn when they seem more concerned about covering up wrongdoings than addressing them honestly. I don't think this is a problem that is unique to the Cleveland Indians, but I think that there needs to be reckonings across Major League Baseball. Unfortunately, the commissioner's office is part of the problem, not the solution. Until a truly independent outside party is brought in, there is transparency and accountability, these problems will continue to plague the sport. That is very deep. That was actually my first time reading that statement. As soon as I saw that he had put out a statement, I knew that I needed to put one, or I knew that I needed to read it with this part of the in this part of the podcast. That is horrifying, to say the very least. And I have my own personal feelings about Rob Manfred and the commissioner's office, and I'm not going to talk about that right here. But I think that I am just happy that this situation is out there, and that these women have gotten to the point to where they feel comfortable enough to talk to at least a reporter about this kind of thing. It is incredibly horrific. And there's no place in the world for this, let alone Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball has definitely fallen from grace over the course of my lifetime, and I'm only 20 years old. I love listening to the stories that my dad and my grandfather and all of the people who are older than me tell me how baseball felt and how baseball used to matter. And unfortunately, baseball doesn't matter the way that it did while my dad was growing up, or while somebody else who might be listening to the podcast while you were growing up. But part of the reason is things like this, the covering up of these horrible situations. Just going over a little bit more of what Calloway did. One Mets employee recalled he was on the phone all the time. I was like, 2 hours before a game, buddy? Are you having a meeting? Aren't you having a meeting? You could tell it had nothing to do with the game. It's 5:15. Who are you texting? According to one former Mets employee, Calloway earned the nickname among several people within the organization, D-Pick Mike. Calloway was fired by the Mets in October of 2019. His exit with the organization didn't have anything to do with it didn't have anything to do with sexual misconduct. It had everything to do with the fact that he wasn't winning baseball games like they expected. In the 2 seasons he was there, he only won 163 games, went 163 and 161, and missed the playoff both years. But less than a month later, he was hired onto Joe Maddon's pitching staff as the coaching staff, I should say, as the pitching coach. And Joe Maddon in spring training of last season said that Calloway was very bright and was somebody who could analyze the game extremely well. Quote, "There are so many things that he brings to the table," Maddon said, "but I think that's primarily him. He's got a nice way about him." Calloway, when reached before the publication of the Athletics' last article last month, said that any relationship he was involved in was consensual and that his contact was in no way intended to be disrespectful to any women. Multiple sources told the Athletic that Calloway has denied any wrongdoing with the Angels. When contacted Monday, Calloway responded via email, quote, "While much of this reporting around my behavior has been inaccurate, the truth is that on multiple occasions I have been unfaithful to my wife, and for that I am deeply sorry. What I have done is use my position to harass... What I have never done is use my position to harass or pressure women. I am confident that I have never engaged in anything non-consensual. I feel truly blessed that my wife and children have stuck with me as the most personal and embarrassing details of my infidelities have been revealed. I will continue to work as hard as I can to repair the rift in trust that I have caused inside my family." End quote. In the wake of revelations about Calloway's behavior under their watch, Indians and Mets officials have attempted to look forward. Antonetti said, quote, "It's his responsibility as the leader of the organization to redouble our efforts to make sure that we have a safe and inclusive environment," end quote. Alderson said that the Mets had, quote, begun a review of our hiring process to ensure our vetting of new employees is more thorough and comprehensive. Major League Baseball announced that it is updating its harassment and discrimination policies. Some who lived through Callaway's time in Cleveland were subjected to his aggressive advances, questioned how men were once supervised. Callaway can be trusted to fix the culture that allowed him to operate so brazenly. One former female Indians employee, either they were too afraid to say anything, or what he was doing too good of a job for them to say anything. So that is the remainder of that article from The Athletic. It was definitely a deep article, and I understand if you were, or if you may have not liked that part of the podcast. I completely understand. And I'm probably as angry as anybody. I obviously have deep respect, and I don't even begin to know or to claim to know what the women went through when dealing with Calloway. I think that the most disappointing part of all of this, at least to me, is that Major League Baseball allowed this to happen. And another incredibly disappointing aspect of this is that my favorite team, the team that I looked up to growing up and have thrown my support behind, just continues to let its fan base down. Obviously, they traded the fan favorite and superstar Francisco Lindor to the New York Mets just a few months ago, and then they are changing the name, which is the right thing to do, from the Indians to something else, but this situation definitely takes the cake, especially with what Terry Francona's son said, that his dad just doesn't get what was wrong about some of these situations, and this is a little bit. I mean, this is a tough situation for a lot of people. I know of a couple of people inside the Indians organization, and they're definitely going to have to deal with this in some form or fashion. I am honestly, I'm kind of at a loss for words at the moment, just because I know that it is such a difficult situation to be in. I think that Francona is gone. I think that Antonetti is gone. I think that the general manager, Mike Shuroff, is gone. And I think that there is going to be a major calling to get the Dolans out of Major League Baseball. But like a lot of people in this, but like a lot of those that are involved in this story have said, that they don't necessarily believe that it is a Cleveland Indian issue only. They tend to say that it is it's a Major League Baseball issue, and like Terry Francona's son said, that until there's a third party that actually takes care of situations like these, that doesn't have that their entire goal, this third party organization's entire goal is solely to protect those people, I don't think that anything is going to be able to change. Which, I mean, obviously, I think that while this is a very tough situation, that everybody in the Cleveland organization needs to, that knew about this and did nothing, needs to be let go. Anybody who was with the Mets organization who knew about this needs to be let go. Anybody who knows about anything like this going on in the Angels organization and hasn't said anything needs to be let go. This is a tough situation for everybody involved, and Mickey Callaway is the biggest one responsible for this. He is obviously responsible for his actions, but those who did not do anything to help these women or stop these interactions from happening is complicit and just as at fault. There is a incredible responsibility that they have when they find out these things, and it is incredible to find out the lengths of how far Major League Baseball and the Cleveland Indians were willing to go to hide something like this. And the fact that they were so, or that the fact that the organization of the Cleveland Indians was not forthcoming to the Mets, is also just as horrific. The idea that they did not and would not share any information regarding this as a disclosure is just the sickest thing in the world that you can that could be going on in Major League Baseball at the moment. I think that the Dolans need to sell the team to a person that is going to respect the players, the women that could be put in these situations, maybe even the potential men that could be put into these situations, and especially the fans. I think that the Dolans consistently disrespect the fans, and this situation is like I said just a few minutes ago. It's the icing on the cake. It takes everything away from the fans. It gives those that were supporters of this organization, it is a slap in the face, to say the least, that they would allow this to go on. It is the biggest FU to a loyal fan base that I have seen in my lifetime. And I just think that, I mean, honestly, I'm shocked. I'm saddened. I know that there are many people who feel similar about this as well. I am obviously not, related or involved in any Major League Baseball activities, because I obviously work with the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network, and this podcast just happens to talk about Major League Baseball. But I would like to say that that I am sorry for those that were affected, and to those that were harassed. I just wanted to say that I am sorry for this situation, and I'm sorry that you were put into this situation by somebody of such a high-ranking position, and I'm sorry that you felt that you couldn't go anywhere and say anything about this. And with that being said, we're going to, in the next segment, we're going to take it to a lighter note and go over some Major League Baseball spring training stuff, and then we're going to go over the top 10 baseball players of all time, or not of all time, of right now, the top 10 baseball players in Major League Baseball. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in just a few moments.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back into the GSMC Baseball Podcast. So in this segment, we're just going to be going over some spring training so far. Spring training started on it started on February 28th, and there have been some pretty good games so far. And some decent statistics to look at, just to get kind of a feel of how some of the players are doing so far. The Astros and Nationals played on March 1st. The Astros ended up winning. Obviously, spring training games don't matter, but Houston was out-hit 7-11. But Houston ended up winning the game 7-6. Carlos Correa had 2 at-bats, went 0 for 2. And then Pena came in for Correa, went 1 for 2 with a strikeout. Jose Altuve played. He had a hit and a walk. He went 0 for 1 with a walk and scored a run. Yuri Gurriel went 0 for 2 with a strikeout. And that is, and also it looks like Myers played as well. Jake Myers of the Astros played. He went 0 for 2. He got the start in center field. As for pitching stats go for the Astros, Hartman got the win, pitching for 2 innings. The starter for the Astros, Nivaldo Rodriguez, pitched 2 innings, got the start, didn't give up any runs. On the National side, Ryan Zimmerman played. He went 1 for 1 with a walk, a hit, and a run scored. And that was the only major player or major batter for the Nationals to actually play. And the Nationals did not have any starters throw yesterday. On the 1st. I'm recording this on the 2nd. The Marlins played the Astros on February 28th, winning 6-1 in the 7 innings that they played. It was a decent game. Castano pitched and got the win for from Miami, and for the Astros, Altuve played in that game as well, going 0 for 2. And that was pretty much the only major. Those were the only couple major players that ended up playing in that game. During the Atlanta Braves and Tampa Bay Rays game on February 28th, Ender Enciarte played. He went 0 for 1 with a walk. Dansby Swanson also played. Dansby went 1 for 2 with a hit, a walk, and a strikeout. Pablo Sandoval and Jason Kipnis also played. Kipnis went 0 for 3, it looks like, with a couple of strikeouts. Pablo Sandoval went 1 for 3. And then on the Tampa Bay Rays side, Austin Meadows was the DH, and he went 1 for 2 with a couple of RBIs and a run scored. Diaz played, the third baseman for the Rays. Yandy Diaz went 0 for 1 with a walk. And then they mostly had prospects and things like that playing. As for pitchers, it was pretty much nothing was no big names other than Sean Newcomb pitching and Carl Edwards Jr. for the Atlanta Braves. Newcomb pitched 1 inning, gave up 1 hit, 1 earned run, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts. Carl Edwards Jr. pitched 1 inning, striking out 1, no hits or walks. And then on the Tampa Bay pitching side, looks like Strickland pitched, and he pitched 1 inning, giving up 1 run, 2 walks, and no strikeouts. And then the next game we're going to go over was the Washington Nationals and the St. Louis Cardinals. They ended up tying at 4 runs apiece. The Nationals had Victor Robles, who went 1 for 3 and a couple of strikeouts. Trey Turner also played, going 1 for 2 with a strikeout. Josh Bell played, going 1 for 2 as well, with also a strikeout and a walk. Kyle Schwarber played, going 1 for 3 with a hit and a run scored. Starling Castro played, going 1 for 2 with a run scored and a strikeout. And then in the St. Louis side of it, Matt Carpenter was the starting DH, went 0 for 1 with a walk. Paul Goldschmidt played, going 0 for 1 with a walk as well. Nolan Arenado also got the start, going 0 for 2, and didn't strike out at all, but still went 0 for 2. Paul DeJong went 0 for 2, their starting shortstop. Yadier Molina went 1 for 2, and then they also had Bader playing in center field. He went 1 for 2 as well with a strikeout. Pitching-wise, nobody notable for the Nationals, although the St. Louis pitching staff did start Jack Flaherty, who's one of their starting pitchers during the regular season. But yeah, so far a lot of guys seem to, and they're limited at bats. They've had most players have had 1 to 2 at bats so far, and they're off to what everybody expected. I mean, it's very early in spring training, just getting still trying to get the timing and everything down. The next game we are going to go over is on February 28th. The Indians and the Reds played. The Indians won 5-1 with Joey Votto playing for the Reds, going 2 for 2, which is a good sign for him, also getting an RBI. The Reds are going to need Joey Votto to step up quite a bit this season, just because they made the playoffs last year, but they lost Trevor Bauer and didn't really add anything in return, and because of that, they're just going to be they're going to be a probably middle of the road team, but they have a chance if they can put a lot of stuff together to end up making the playoffs this year, and Joey Votto is going to have to play like the Joey Votto of the past, and I'm not totally sure that he can do that just yet. Nicholas Castellanos also got the start yet on the 28th, going 0 for 2 with a strikeout. And Eugenio Suarez, I apologize, I'm butchering the heck out of that name, but Suarez went 0 for 1 with a walk. Mike Moustakas also got the start. He went 0 for 2. And then Tucker Barnhart played a little bit, going 0 for 1 with a walk as well. And onto the Indian side, Oscar Mercado went 0 for 3, got the start. Ben Gamel got the start as well. He went 0 for 2. Jake Bowers went 0 for 1. Mike Freeman went 1 for 2. And Austin Hedges got the start behind the plate, going 0 for 1. And as for pitchers, nobody's super important for the Reds pitched, but Brian looks like Brian Shaw is back with the Indians, and he got pitched for an inning, as did Tristan McKenzie, one of the top prospects for the Indians. McKenzie went 1 2/3 of an inning, giving up 2 hits, 1 earned run, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts. Brian Shaw, 1 inning, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. And then the next game that we're going to be looking at is the Toronto Blue Jays and the New York Yankees from February 28th. And the Blue Jays had Calvin Biggio playing, Bo Bichette, Gurriel Jr. also played, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. played, but Springer did not get the start in that game, it looks like, and didn't play. As for Biggio, Calvin went 1 for 3 with a walk, 1 for 3 with a hit and an RBI. Bo Bichette 0 for 0 with a run scored and 2 walks. Gurriel went looks like 1 for 3 with a walk, so that's a very good start for him. And then on the side of the New York Yankees, the Yankees had DJ LeMahieu starting. He went 1 for 2. Aaron Judge 0 for 2. Gleyber Torres 1 for 2. Gary Sanchez 0 for 2. Clint Frazier 0 for 2 as well. And then pitching-wise, nobody super important pitched for either of these teams. But the Yankees are looking like they're off to a somewhat of a slow start, just out of the gate. As for the Dodgers played on February 28th as well. They beat the Athletics 2-1. Mookie Betts played, Corey Seager played, Austin Barnes played, AJ Pollock played, and then that looks like everybody super important for the Dodgers, even including their pitching staff. Nobody super important pitched in that game. Mookie Betts went 0 for 2 with a strikeout. Corey Seager 1 for 2 with an RBI. Austin Barnes 0 for 2. AJ Pollock went 0 for 2 as well. And as for the Oakland Athletics, doesn't look like they played much of anybody on the 28th. And they ended up losing 2-1. Now on to the Mariners and Padres' first spring training game. Tatis Jr. played, Trent Grisham played, Manny Machado and Tommy Pham, Austin Myers also played. And then as for pitching staff for the Padres, looks like nobody super important played, but most pitchers pitched 2 innings, except for Markle, who looks like gave up the game-winning run in the bottom of the 9th to the Mariners. Grisham 1 for 2 with an RBI. Tatis 0 for 2. Manny Machado 1 for 1 with a walk. Tommy Pham 0 for 2, and Will Myers went 1 for 1 with a RBI and a run scored. As for the Mariners, they had Jared Crawford. He went 0 for 2. Haniger went 1 for 2 as well with a run scored. Corey Seager 1 for 1 with a run scored, an RBI, and a walk. And then that is pretty much all of the starters for them. And then moving on to the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers obviously won the game against the White Sox 7-2. The Brewers didn't play any of their major players, but the White Sox did play Tim Anderson, as well as their Yohan Makata and their first baseman Andrew Vaughn. And pitching wise, nobody super important pitch for either of these teams. Just some prospects and minor guys getting a little extra work. Tim Anderson went 1 for 3. Yohan Moncada went 0 for 3, but also scored a run. And then Vaughn went 0 for 1 with a couple of walks to his credit as well. And now moving on to March 1st, the Tigers beat the Yankees the Yankees beat the Tigers. Nobody super vital played for either of these teams. It doesn't look like Derek Dietrich did get a little bit of playing time early in the game for the Yankees at third base. Garrett Cole pitched for the Yankees, though, as did Jamison Talion. And then for Detroit, nobody super important and played for Detroit, but Cole ended up going 1 inning, giving up 3 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, and 1 strikeout. Talion, 1 strikeout in his inning of work, no hits or walks to his credit. Against his credit, I should say. The Kansas City Royals and Indians played. Cesar Hernandez got the start at second. Jose Ramirez played third. Framil Reyes DH'd. Eddie Rosario in left. Roberto Perez behind the plate. And then in left, they had, in center field, they had Bradley Zimmer. At first base, they had, they had Bobby Bradley, who is trying to make the team this year for the Indians, and then Rosario as the shortstop. Ahmed is probably Ahmad Rosario could potentially be the Indian shortstop this year. But as for the Royals, Witt Jr. Played shortstop yesterday. But other than that, they didn't really have much in the way of their typical lineup. Cesar Hernandez 1 for 2, Jose Ramirez 0 for 2 with a couple of strikeouts. Eddie Rosario 1 for 3 with an RBI. Framil Reyes 1 for 2 with a strikeout and a walk. Roberto Perez 1 for 2, and Bradley Zimmer went 1 for 2 as well. Pitching wise for the Indians, Shane Bieber got the start. Went 1 2/3, gave up 4 hits, 4 runs, 3 earned with 1 walk and 3 strikeouts. And then also Whit Green got the start, or didn't get the start, but came in relief, pitched an inning, and got a strikeout. Didn't give up any runs. Indians a little shaky out of the start so far, especially pitching wise, but. It takes time for everybody to get ready and back to where they were just the season prior, which is, why you don't freak out if you're a Indian fan or a Yankees fan when you see or hear the stats of Shane Bieber and Garrett Cole just getting slaughtered. But for the most part, everybody who has been playing has been getting the right steps done. If for example, like Christian Yelich hasn't played yet, but but when he does start playing, I'm sure it will take him a minute to get actually back to where he was just the season before. All right, so don't go anywhere, y'all. A little bit lighter note this segment, and coming up, I'm going to rank the top 10 players in Major League Baseball right now, just to get that taste out of our mouths. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in just a minute.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
And welcome back in, guys, to this last segment of today's show. Right here, we're going to be going over the top 10 baseball players, in my opinion, right now. But first, before we do anything, before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about spring training, just a little bit more. If you're a Reds fan, Hunter Green is making his first spring training start today, March 2nd, so yesterday. Fernando Tatis Jr. Hit a grand slam earlier, and Adam Wainwright for the Cardinals pitched very well in his spring training debut. And with that being said, let's get into the rankings. So at number 10, I have Max Scherzer. Now, Max Scherzer, I think, is still one of the top 10 baseball players in all of baseball, just because of how good this guy is at pitching. And when he's healthy, he is one of, if not the best pitchers in baseball, and that's why he has won multiple Cy Young Awards. I think DeGrom is probably still a little bit better, but I think if Max Scherzer is on, I don't think anybody is necessarily better than him. At number 9, I am going to put in Francisco Lindor. Now, Lindor is ranked at number 10 on MLB.com, but I think that, and then last year he was actually ranked as number 4, but Lindor for the last couple years has been trying to get a deal done with the Cleveland Indians and wasn't able to. And last year, he recently said that last year, toward the end of the season, the biggest reason that he wasn't playing up to where he used to play or where he had been playing is just because he had lost the motivation to do so. He just had lost the fun in playing baseball. And Francisco Lindor is one heck of a talent. One of the top baseball players in baseball, I think, without a doubt. And with that, I think Francisco Lindor can be a top 5 player in the bigs, but I don't think he's there right now, at least not what we went off of for last season. At number 9, I think you got to put, at number 8, I think you got to put Nolan Arenado. Arenado and Lindor both were just thrown into so many trade rumors the last few seasons. They didn't have any say really in their future with their former clubs. Arenado now with the Cardinals, and Lindor obviously now with the Mets. And in Arenado's first 7 big league seasons, he won a Gold Glove in each of those, while also being an All-Star 5 times and a Silver Slugger 4 times. He's averaged in the last 4 seasons 40 home runs, in the last 5 seasons, 40 home runs and 124 RBIs, and he's the only player in since 2015 with at least 30 home runs and 100 RBIs every year. And I think playing in Colorado for 81 games a year definitely helps with that. In their higher altitude, the ball does tend to go a little bit farther, but he's still a fantastic player, and I know a lot of people were introduced to him and Christian Yelich during the World Baseball Classic, the last one that was before COVID-19 derailed the playing of that this past season. But at But following that, we're going to go to number 8, and we're going to call Garrett Cole our number 7. At number 7, Garrett Cole. He had a dominant 2019 season where he had over 325 strikeouts, the most by any pitcher since Randy Johnson in 2002, and he also led the Cy Young. He also finished second in the Cy Young voting that season with a 250 ERA, and then signed a huge deal with the Yankees. And last year, he continued his dominant stretch with the Yankees, and the Yankees are probably the best team in the American League at the moment, just on paper. And if Garrett Cole is able to continue being the best pitcher in the American League, I think that the Yankees are going to have a very fun season with him as their ace. At number 6, we're going to call Anthony Rendon the number 6 player in all of baseball. Rendon helped the Nationals very, very much a couple years ago. Anthony Rendon. Obviously, the Angels have struggled in the past trying to build on the talent that they have with Mike Trout and other players as well. And because of that, I think that Rendon is definitely up there in the rankings of best players in baseball. Now at number 6, I am going to put in Shane Bieber. Now, Shane Bieber is the Cleveland Indians ace. He is the lone ace that the Cleveland Indians have left, just because they have sort of traded everybody away. They traded away Mike Clevenger and Trevor Bauer the last few seasons, but last year he went 8-1 in 12 games pitched, had a 1.63 ERA and a WHIP that was .87. He's 25 years old, not even close to being in his prime yet, and he put together one of the best seasons in baseball history. In 2019, he was arguably one of the best pitchers in the American League, where in the 34 games he pitched, he went 15-8 with a WHIP that was just 1.05, I should say, and then an ERA of 3.28. And so I'm expecting him to build quite a bit on this. I personally think that he is the best pitcher in the American League at the moment. I think that he is better than Garrett Cole. I just think Garrett Cole right now has a little bit more help around him than Shane Bieber. But with that being said, I think that he is arguably one of the best pitchers in baseball. Now, at number 5, I am going to put Jacob deGrom. Now, deGrom didn't win the Cy Young last year, but he was a Cy Young finisher, and he definitely got some votes to win the Cy Young. But he lost to Trevor Bauer, and that's not necessarily his fault. I think that deGrom arguably had a better season than Trevor Bauer last year, but Trevor Bauer was magnificent in his own right, and was able to win the Cy Young because of his help getting the Reds to the playoffs last year after a brief absence for them. deGrom, however, is just a fantastic player. He hasn't been as dominant as he has been in the past. In 2019, he had a ERA of 2.43, going 11-8, and winning in pitching in 32 games. So he was getting a lot of time where he wasn't the number one, or he wasn't getting a lot of help from his team. And then last year he pitched in 12 games, going 4-2, and with a WHIP of a .96 and a 2.38 ERA. He is in his prime, though. He is 32 years old at the moment, and is just still a fantastic pitcher in the bigs, and definitely one of, if not the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. And I put all three of those pitchers there just because of how, like, in these spots, just because of how dominant they are. But the fact that they don't play every day and make the difference every day. Now, in the playoffs, it's a little bit different, but getting to the playoffs and playing over 150 games like guys like Lindor and Arenado do, I think that with them having to take so much time off in between days that they play, I think that that defensive players make a little bit more of an impact. Now, going to number 4, I have Mookie Betts at number 4. Mookie Betts, obviously, recently traded to the Dodgers just last year, helped get to or win a World Series for the Dodgers. And in 2019 with the Red Sox, he had almost 600 plate appearances, had 176 hits, and 80 RBIs, 97 walks, and 135 runs scored. And his average in that season was 295. And then last season, it was a shortened season, obviously. He only had 219 at-bats, 64 hits, 39 RBIs, and 24 walks with a 2.92 ERA. He is only 28 years old. He's just getting into his prime as well. His career batting average is still above 300. It's 301, and the fact that he has a 301 batting average is just pretty ridiculous to me. It's hard to even fathom somebody that actually is still in today's age of baseball, where everybody is either striking out or getting walked, it feels like, or hitting a home run. It's pretty impressive that Mookie Betts has a career average that is over 300. I just think that is just straight up amazing. Now, at number 3, I have a little bit of a surprise here. Fernando Tatis Jr., nicknamed El Nino and Bebo, he just signed a 14-year extension for $340 million with the Padres. We went over that a couple episodes ago, and I went over that with y'all. In 2019, he had 330 plate appearances with 106 hits with a 3.17 ERA, and last year he struggled a little bit but he only had 224 plate appearances with 62 hits, 45 RBIs, 27 walks, and a 277 average. But with that being said, I think that he is still one of the top talents in Major League Baseball, and I think that he can. I think that he is one of, he definitely has the potential to be the best player in baseball in just a few years. Obviously, I think when Mike Trout retires, because I think Mike Trout is probably the best baseball player that the world has ever seen, and I'm including Ken Griffey Jr. and Barry Bonds and all of that. I think that Mike Trout is just so good at everything. I think that he's sort of like the LeBron James of Major League Baseball, where he does everything that all of the other greats have done, except he does it sort of by himself. And baseball is weird because you can't have more circumstances go into something like winning a baseball game than it does for winning a baseball game than it does a basketball game. But that I have Fernando Tatis there just because I think that he has the talent and the willingness and potential star power to be one of the greatest, even though he is only in his third year in Major League Baseball. Now, at number 2, I have Christian Yelich. Now, I have Yelich here just because, or even though that in 2020 he didn't have a good season, but I think that he is a fantastic player, and I think that even though he had a very rough season last year, hitting only 205 in the 58 games and 200 plate appearances that he had last year, I think that he still has a chance to get back to his MVP level form that he was at in 2018 and 2019, where he hit 326 in 2018, 329 in 2019, and had he had over 160 hits in 2019, over 180 hits in 2018, and in those 2 seasons alone, he had a combined 80 home runs, which he only has 151 career home runs. So I think that he definitely has the chance to. I think that he has a chance to be back to where he was, but I don't think that Fernando Tatis Jr. is there just yet. But for right now, obviously, I think that the number 1 player in all of baseball, at least right now, is Mike Trout. I mean, he has a career average of 304. He has over 200 stolen bases for his career. He has 302 home runs, and he has only been in the league for maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, including last year. And last year he played in 53 games, still had 17 home runs in the last full season that he was able to play. In 2019, he hit 291, had 27 doubles, 45 home runs. It's ridiculous how good he is. His OBP, or his on base percentage for his career, is over 400. And his slugging percentage for his career is almost at 600. His OPS for his career is at 1,000, which is crazy good. I mean, he's just the best player in baseball right now. And anybody who tries to disagree or who tries to say somebody else, I mean, I don't see how they can be better than Mike Trout. I mean, Trout is just so good. But thank you all for listening in today. I know that we got into some very heavy stuff earlier in the episode, but with that being said, we had to talk. I had to talk about it. I couldn't not speak on the subject and go over it with you all. I just want to say thank you for listening. I know that it's pretty tough to talk about some of these things, but I do want to say that thank you for listening. Follow us on Twitter at GSMC_baseball. Or follow me on Twitter at Patrick Kenny, all one word, and then 1 underscore after. Tweet us. Let me know what you guys thought of the episode. Leave a review on Amazon, or not Amazon, Apple, and rate us, review us, give us feedback so we can improve our podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a great day.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.